Bramborough back with some Grand Tactician Civil War CSA campaign in the 1.06 beta. Okay, try to get through some of this early stuff pretty quickly. At the beginning of the last episode, I had advanced time a little bit at the beginning in order to get past October 1st and be able to look at a new round of economic and intel reports, and then forgot to look at the economic and intel reports. Let's just have a quick look at what they're saying. So this is about a week old at this point in game time. Current rating A- at the time. I think that was correct. We're at A right now, which is good. Debt unchanged. 90 million debt. Economy cycle expansion. Wealth below average and decreasing compared to the previous month. A little bump up in taxes. Good. Last month, 0 buildings constructed. On October 1st, that was probably true. Of course, in the last episode, built some POW camps and quite a few markets, but those would not have been reflected in this report. Our exports are growing just a tiny bit. This is more than we had before, but you know, the import-export imbalance is still enormous. That's probably not going to change. Corporate production over the last 3 months, pretty negligible. And we lack artillery ammo, locomotives, and iron. I don't think any of that is a big surprise. What does the intel report say? Union is working on Militia Act 4. Okay. The last project they completed was railroad construction. Their relations with Spain are 0. I don't know why it calls out Spain. This says, again, estimated 0 men recruited to 0 brigades. I don't believe that. I think that, however this is populated, just isn't working. However, it does appear to be populating correctly with ships. They got a bunch of ships building. Army morale 93%, coming back up. And, interestingly, the last couple of intel reports said that the enemy is consolidating and regrouping. Now it's saying carrying out offensive operations. And yeah, I think we're kind of seeing that. We had that army moving down toward Evansville. We had Mansfield's army come down into Kentucky. Of course, he retreated back up after the defeat at Frankfort. And we've got armies moving in on Price in Missouri. So a little bit of stirring of life in the Union armies, which is good to see. Okay. Just a note about railroad construction. Right at the beginning of the campaign, in episode 1 or 2, we were still definitely in July, and I started constructing the Houston and Shreveport Railroad in Texas, going to Louisiana. And so this campaign starts, I think the date is July 18th, 1861. So we are not quite 3 months into the campaign. When we built that railroad, folks might remember that it initially told us it would take 265 days in the projected time period to build. And then we actually built it, or ordered construction, I should say. And that estimate doubled to 530 days. So that was not quite 3 months ago. And so probably about 80 days or so. In which case we should be seeing now that this railroad is going to take about 450 days to complete. No, 356 days. So about 3 months worth has been shaved off of this railroad construction already. So that's good news. I don't know precisely why that is happening. Maybe there was competition from a lot of the buildings we bought. Or maybe it's just the economy's getting a little bit better. I don't know why that's happening, but it is. So that's pretty encouraging to see. We're still looking at a year, but it's building faster than this construction estimate says, and the construction estimate is coming down. It's 30% complete. So, we thought, we figured earlier about 10% per month, and that's holding true. So this thing may actually complete kind of in the early summer, late spring of 1862. That's not too bad. Right. Talked in the last episode about how had some units that had been recruited that were ready to go up to Garnett's army up here. And they are on the way now. If I can get it clicked. We're looking at 4 days, and then he's going to have a decent size. It's still a little bit smaller than the others. Not quite 15,000 men. But he'll have a decent force here in less than a week. Also talked about how, I had a pretty long discussion in the last episode about how, the new strategy along the rivers in Kentucky, and about how I wanted to create another army for kind of this area in here, around Cairo, Illinois, and Evansville, Indiana, a Western Kentucky army, to bridge the gap between Sidney Johnston over here and Sterling Price over in Missouri. So I haven't built that army because I need forces for it. But at the Western Department, which is now up at Nashville, I have started recruiting the forces for that army. And they still have quite a bit of time before they get to Bragg in Nashville. A little over a month, I think. I think the longest of these we're looking at something like 38 days. Well, maybe a little faster. I thought there was one that was longer. No. Yeah, okay. This Cav unit is coming all the way from Texas. That one's going to take a little bit longer. So that army isn't formed and won't be for a little while yet, but at least the men have been recruited for it. Okay. This is just a historical thing, but in the last episode I kind of noticed here's a plantation called Hard Times, which seemed a little odd, and I just out of curiosity I kind of looked around online, and there was indeed a plantation in this area somewhere in northeastern Louisiana that was called Hard Times. Could not find a story behind where that name came from. I found very little information. But I saw several mentions. There were several hits in Google, and the location for this plantation was kind of all over, Hard Times Plantation in this parish, or in that parish, or in this other parish. For those who may not know, unlike the other 49 counties in the United States, Louisiana does not have counties. They have parishes. And that's a legacy from when Louisiana was French. So, at first I thought, well, that doesn't make sense. There wouldn't be like 5 or 6 different Hard Times plantations in different locations. And then I thought, well, yeah, there very well could be. the bigger plantations weren't necessarily just one big contiguous block of real estate. A planter might have 1,000 acres here, and that's the main place with the big house. Then he may have a few hundred acres over here and a few hundred acres up here, maybe a couple thousand acres somewhere else. The original plantation area may not have even been his biggest tract of land. So yeah, I think maybe Hard Times was a pretty big plantation as a business and had multiple plots of land in multiple places in northeast Louisiana. One of the Hard Times was actually pretty close to Vicksburg and was apparently used as a supply facility supporting the Union Army, supporting Grant during the Vicksburg campaign. I'm no expert on it. That's just what I was able to glean in a few minutes Googling around. Okay. And then finally, here is a pretty big change and worth talking about for 1.06. In the previous versions of the game, up through 1.05, the way to get to the Army Corps structure was the player researched Military 2. That is what got you the Army Corps structure on its own. Of course, there were no projects. Reading the description of Military 2, I'm not going to read it all out to you, but basically it makes no mention of the Army Corps structure now, and there is a project in the military side called, I think we've talked about this before, Organization Reform. And reading this description over here on the left, finance and military organization, introduce the Corps system, will allow blah, 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 tells you what it does. And so it certainly seems clear that this project needs to be unlocked with military subsidies before the Army Corps setup can be implemented with the military. Well, it turns out either that's just plain not true, or they forgot to implement the actual mechanic in the update. Because once I unlocked Military 2, it turns out I can form armies and corps. And so I have done that. And we have the Army of Northern Virginia now with, if I can get it clicked, with Robert E. Lee in command. And these two armies have now become the 1st and 2nd Corps of the A&V. And he is on, it plopped him in Winchester when I formed the HQ. So he's on his way down to take a position with his corps. And the combined strength now, the Army of Northern Virginia, is 43,000 men. I have also set, now there's still just one corps in these armies, but I've also set up an Army of Virginia, or excuse me, Army of Western Virginia. The game just randomly formed it in Alexandria. And that is now under Lieutenant General Beauregard, and he is on his way over here, close to his subordinate corps. The Army of Tennessee has been formed with Albert Sidney Johnston in command. I bumped William Hardy up, and this is now Johnston's former command is now Hardy's Corps, and Johnston plopped him in Memphis. He's on his way up to Covington. I have not done this yet with the Missouri Army because, like I said, the Union has changed their stance a little bit. They're going offensive, and he's got two armies like boring in on him. And so I didn't want to fool with the organization and, him winding up down in Little Rock or something. So we're just staying with the current setup until this is dealt with. I think we're going to have at least one, maybe two battles here pretty quickly. So there you have it. We have the Army Corps structure after all. Whether that's intended or not, I'm not sure, but I could do it, so I did. That's about all there is to that. And I've talked about this in previous campaigns. Even if there is only one corps in an army, and so that may seem superfluous. However, there's benefits to that. For one thing, having that army commander above the corps gets you this little in range buff. This unit is within command range of the army commander and will reinforce any battles within that range. And here in the morale, that is a plus 8% boost to morale recovery. And that's because this is now no longer an independent army, it's a corps within a larger army. And that's where that in-range morale buff comes from. So for that reason, I think it's still worth setting up one corps armies, which is what I've done in Western Virginia and in Kentucky. It's what I'm going to do with this other force that I'm now recruiting men for in Tennessee. And as soon as this situation is kind of resolved here and I've got a little bit of time to do it, I'm going to do the same thing with this army over in Missouri. I considered taking this new force that we're going to form in a few weeks and maybe making it a second corps underneath the Army of Tennessee under Albert Sidney Johnston. I don't think I'm probably going to do that because the whole idea was that, you know, there's kind of a front over here and a front over here. And I don't know if these two corps will often be close enough to each other to be within the command radius of one army commander in the middle. So I'll probably make a separate full army over here, even if it just stays one corps in actual size. Okay. I've got something I need to go do for a moment, so I am going to put a quick cut in right here. I'll be back momentarily. Okay, just a quick review of what the armies are doing. Really no change in Virginia. These guys are kind of staying defensive for the moment. Garnett should be getting his extra troops in just 4 days. Once that happens, I'm going to move him back up to Grafton. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to... Well, maybe I'll go take Marietta. I have to keep an eye on what McClellan is doing, who is now in Vision again. And he's got 15,000 troops with more coming. Predicated to increase to 20,000, right? And then also, if we look in here, you know, we're at about 100,000 men. The Union's up to almost 120,000. So we're doing a pretty decent job keeping up with them on recruiting and growing the size of the military. That, you know, I'm pretty comfortable with that gap. But the fact that, okay, he's up to 120,000, and we're seeing armies that say it's this big and it's going to this big, which is why 0 men recruited to 0. Yeah, I don't trust that. You know, every other indicator we have says that's not true. Okay. Now Hardee's Corps is capturing Covington and almost done with it. I think when he's done with that, well, interesting. It certainly made sense earlier that we saw the Army of Indiana coming down this way, and we saw him right around here. Even his little tracker arrows says he was here. It certainly looked like he was just going to come over here and retake Evansville. And frankly, there's not much that we could have done about it. But he's headed back north. Maybe he's getting on. Maybe he came back up here to get on the railroad and either come over here to help Army of the Ohio smack Hardy, or maybe he's going to come over this way. Yeah, we'll just have to see. That leaves Sterling Price in Missouri. Now, the combined strength of these two armies is still lower than his. There's about 12,500 troops between these two, and Price has 16,500. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to catch these armies not combined. They may already be too close. I don't know if this is going to work. But I think what I'm going to do is force march him this way toward the Army of the West, which is only not quite 5,000 men. I don't believe he'll fight. He might if this other army is able to reinforce him, but if not, I think he's just going to retreat up towards St. Louis, and then we'll flip and come back up here and attack the Army of Southwest Missouri. That's my plan, and I'm actually going to put him in That's not right. Wrong button. I'm actually going to force march him if I can. I'm not going to do it that way though. That'll be another order delay. I'll just do it on the movement order itself. Here. And before I start time rolling, is there anything we need to do with the navies? We have so one squadron is still here, has not seen combat. The other one is reconstituting. New Orleans squadron is the one which got banged up pretty good, but won, or at very least accomplished its objective in forcing. Can't see him anymore, but we're not getting blockaded around here now. And I am wondering, this guy's still retreating down to Tampa. It's only one ship, and it's a gunboat. I'm kind of thinking maybe just disestablish it. I think I'm going to do that. I mean, this thing's down at 34%. It's got to sit and repair anyway. I'm just going to disestablish this squadron by pulling this ship back into our ship pool. Okay. All right. So there's a couple spots where we might have a battle pretty soon. Could happen here. Could happen in Missouri. Could happen somewhere in this Shenandoah, Western Virginia area. All right. I promise I'm going to start time rolling real soon. One final note: we do have some projects available. There is suppressed population, which reduces enemy support in conquered states and territories. That might be okay if conquered states included Kentucky. I kind of don't think it does. It's not conquered, it's seceded. That's a Confederate state now. I don't think this applies. I don't think it does. If I knew for sure it was, this might be kind of tempting, but since I'm not, it isn't. I think I'm going to wait for another admin reform or maybe another railroad construction. Worth noting, as these levels come up on admin reform, this thing started cheap. Like, I think it was 250,000. So as the levels go up, so does the cost, which makes sense. That is a reasonable progression. And so now we need 433,000 in political subsidies for the third level of admin reform. Just an observation, and it makes sense to me. We could spend some military subsidies on civil order. I don't think we need to do that, at least not now. I think this primarily counteracts loss of state support due to conscription or possibly excessive casualties. I don't think we need to do this yet, especially not, since it's military subsidies. Not doing that. Talked before about how I initially had a plan to go after reboard muskets, but now that we see a little bit better how the whole system works, skipping reboards. We've got that huge order of Springfield rifles on the way, which I think is still about 4 months away. So we should be getting those during the winter, and we'll have those out to the brigades before the 1862 campaign season really starts rolling. So that's good. So I'm holding fire on well, I'm not holding fire, I'm just not going to do it. And the other things we have available on the military side are recruiting agents, which increases intel gathering. I think we've got, I think our intel situation is fairly okay. I'm not going to spend subsidies on this or on this, and I like the idea of the trade warfare. I think at some point I would like to get a level or two of this, but I'm not going to do it for now. I'm going to hold the military subsidies, and I think what I'm going to wait for here, should be coming fairly soon, is I could certainly be talked into legacy rifles. That would get us more Mississippis available, and possibly Hall rifles, which I like. Although the description doesn't specifically say that. So I am kind of curious to know if Halls are included in that. But I think what I'm most interested in is cast artillery. That will get us Napoleons. There, it's a smooth bore, but it's certainly a much better smooth bore than the default 6-pounders, and also better than the 12-pound field guns. And it's not just smooth bores. This also unlocks the James rifle. So there is a rifle in this project. So for that reason, yeah, I think I'm going to go cast artillery. We can get a few rifles that way. It's some better smooth bores. And that one's real close. Needs 300, and we're at 295. It'll come along just about as soon as I get time rolling. Okay. Let's go. Alright, price moving. Is he still in scout mode? He is. Well, line's coming right at me. Ah, there we go. Rear guard action. Nice. Okay, now let's go up and hit that army. Okay, they just got their Militia 4 Act done. So we'll see in the next report. No, he's not actually retreating. He was simply moving away. So he may still be reinforcement eligible. I'm not sure. Aha! That had the desired effect. Okay, so this is 16,000 men, 7,000 men. And wow, that is a high proportion of cav. That's interesting. Okay, let's pop in. I'm almost tempted to auto-resolve it. I don't know if this is going to be all that terribly interesting a battle. But I'm not going to. Remember this earlier in the campaign, this army did fight a battle and they lost because of some weird things in the retreat phase. And then there were so many bugs in that particular version of 1.06 that we actually rolled back a couple of saves, not because of the loss, but because the update basically crashed the game. And so in this timeline, this army has not fought yet, and this is going to clear their first combat debuff. Okay, this is a meeting situation here. The objective is... Okay, it says meeting situation. However, the Union owns the objective. This is their entry point here, or here, or here. Huh. So he could be anywhere along the northern edge of the map. But it's essentially a defensive situation for him. And so we're going to have to march up through all this foresty area. And we'll probably find him somewhere in this area. Okay. What is the... And both armies are just about the same morale. We actually probably have a fighting spirit debuff because Missouri is a Union state. There's a lot of support here for the Confederacy, actually more than for the Union. But it's a Union state, therefore I think we've got the debuff. And where is that shown? Somebody was asking about this in a comment, so let me just kind of go over this a little bit. So there's this stat which is kind of obscure, but it's similar to morale but distinctly separate. Fighting spirit. And this isn't the morale of the army. That is a different stat. However, fighting spirit is a morale cap. Our morale cannot go higher than 84 overall. Whereas the Unions could conceivably go as high as 100. Now, these aren't the morale numbers. This is the morale cap. And fighting spirit, as far as I've been able to glean while playing this game, basically is determined by two things. The first is state support. The higher your state support, the higher your fighting spirit. The higher that morale cap is. And this is an average number, or it might be perhaps the lowest number. Each individual unit, depending on the state that they come from, may have a slightly different fighting spirit. And then the other thing that determines the fighting spirit is where you are fighting. whether it is a Union state or a Confederate state. An army on its home territory, a Union army fighting in a Union state, or vice versa for the CSA, doesn't have, their fighting spirit is not affected. They don't get a buff, they just don't get a nerf. If an army is fighting in an enemy state, as we are here, we are fighting in a Union state, there is a fighting spirit nerf, and that's why we are lower than the Union. Now, both of these are pretty high. Yet neither army is up against that cap, so that's actually not hurting us too bad, I think. If we look at some of the individual units, you can see that the 84 is actually, that's an army cap, but each individual unit, their fighting spirits are actually a little bit lower. And that is probably because a lot of these units in this army from the campaign start are Missouri units. And Missouri has a lot of Confederate support considering that it's a Union state. But that level of support is not nearly as high as it is in the proper Confederate states like Alabama or Mississippi or Virginia. So actually, I think what is going on here is, where was that? Okay, interesting. This is an 84 fighting spirit for the Confederacy. I think what this number, it only reflects the territory debuff. And you have to actually go down a level before you start seeing the effects of state support in the units involved. And this is looks like this is a max. Because as you drill further down, you start seeing lower and lower numbers. Yeah, this is a Missouri unit, 71. Well, this looks backwards. The Arkansas unit is 74. The Missouri unit is 100. I don't know how to explain that. Okay, maybe I don't understand fighting spirit as well as I thought I did. Anywho, we'll form up, we'll probably form up right in this area, march up this road here toward the objective until we find where the Federals are, and then we'll have us a battle. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the cav, put them out in front, and run them up ahead so we get an idea before our infantry blunders into them. Okay, so I'm going to kind of set that up, probably do the initial movement, and I'll come back whenever the Federals are spotted. Okay, so as I mentioned before, started down here, marched up this route, actually kind of split here after the bridge. Some guys came this way, some guys went that way. The cavalry had come up about this far and caught sight of the Federal position. They just threw a line of breastworks across the road right here, well in advance of the objective. And this is the entire force. Remember, this was a pretty small army. And it's basically 2 cav brigades. Now, they're pretty big. and 1 infantry brigade and 1 horse artillery battalion. This is it. That's all there is. Under, who was this commander? Burns. I do not think there are any unspotted federal units anywhere back here. Maybe like an HQ unit or something. This may be the cavalry commander here, Burns. So I've got 2 divisions kind of here facing the position frontally. McCulloch and Harper. And I've got Raines's division. I moved him around this way. And he's just about to engage the flank. And just now, both of these brigades right here, Slack and Waitman, are Mississippi Rifle armed, and they are putting out skirmishers who should just pretty much any moment start to take this cavalry brigade under fire. There weren't any really good spots anywhere through here for artillery, just the shape of the terrain. They picked a pretty decent defensive position, to be honest. This looked like it should be good here on top of this high ground to fire across, but I just don't think they had quite enough range. I did unlimber them here at one point. They weren't getting any shots. I don't know if this is going to be any better over here. I've got them kind of coming over to this spot, which should, you know, from here it looks like they should be able to see over this forested area and take this battery and this infantry brigade under fire. Whether or not they're actually going to have line of sight to do that, I don't know. We'll see. The artillery may not play much of a role in this battle. So basically my idea is that Raines will start working on the flank over here, maybe push in. He's got 3 brigades. He's the biggest infantry division. And as the Federals kind of get their attention focused this way, and these other units may turn and come over here to support Scammon, and then that's when these 2 divisions will start pushing ahead like this. All right. Let's go ahead and tell these skirmishers to come right up on this fence line over here. Okay, well, let's see. This Cav Brigade wants none of that. He's going to come right out of the works and advance. Alrighty. I don't think I'm against that. Let's get these skirms up on the fence, though. Moving. Did I mess that order up or something? Yeah, that didn't work so hot. well. Vacated its position, so let's just move these skirms on up. And we'll get rains. Actually, let's... Yeah, a lot of fences to cross trying to get them up in here. I'm just going to advance them to this fence line. I think that's cleaner. Quite a bit of distance from Price to Rains. I think his order is still coming. Yeah. Skirmishers are having a tough time getting a shot on. I'd like for them to come up here and put some flanking fire. Here, let's try it this way. I don't know why they're not moving. See if the artillery gets any shots from here. No, not quite. Just outside of range. Okay. I think we can advance McCulloch now. These skirms are a little bugged. I'm just gonna, not bugged, but something is kind of messing up their, I'm gonna pull them in and then put them right back out. Something does not seem right with those. Something, I guess there's, you know, it might be a line of sight issue. That's probably what's going on. But I don't know why he won't move forward. Artillery is doing no good where they are. Let me try to find another spot for them. I'm just going to bring them back around over here. And I'm also going to move the cav back over this way. Have them cross the bridge, come up this track, and come at them from this direction. Cav doesn't like that, does he? Range's division over the hill now. Get them into it. Nope, that's wrong. That's just a brigade. Not what I wanted. Okay, these skirms are low on ammo. Yeah. Go back in. That cavalry's broken. I don't remember telling Marmaduke and Van Dorn to come up this far. Oh, they're taking some cockamamie route. Oh, they decided to go this way to here. Alright, 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 here. Stop. can't see crap from here. Because there's a little rise right here. Okay, here. Come to here. Just gonna block the cognac. More like, that's better. Good. Good, I think. He's firing. Okay. First Brigade has taken some casualties. I don't know what the heck Marmaduke is doing. Okay, back off. You've taken enough. Okay, it's retreating now. And 20% versus 5% casualties. Pender did get kind of beat up again. I think these fences here just kind of messed up Marmaduke's movement. Let's see if we can get him to charge or not. Yeah, those fences are kind of messing with his movement, I think. I didn't really realize there was a fence back here earlier. He's tired too from messing around with the fences. I hope he doesn't need some canister here and break. It's very possible. Okay. And artillery got broken. Oh, they're still trying to charge the horse artillery. Reigns' division is moving now, but they're moving through forest. They're not going to get anywhere fast. Okay. Alright, Marmaduke, come over this way. I don't think he's going to be able to get over here in time to do anything against this brigade. I don't think we're at 21.6%. I don't think we're going to reach the 22%. I don't think so. Yeah, I can't even see him anymore. And you know what? When I look at the results of these, you know, during the load screen and it says national morale down by X%, and I usually don't see an enormous difference between major and minor victories. I'm not convinced that there is really a huge difference as far as their after effects. I mean, this tooltip says major victory reduces enemies' readiness and supplies dramatically. Well, I guess we wouldn't see that. Maybe it does have more effect than is really apparent. Yeah, it's 5 minutes left. We've gotten what we're going to get. Okay, 1,600 Union casualties. Lost all of his guns. We lost no guns. We did take almost 800 casualties. Could have played that better, no doubt. It was probably a mistake to run Pender up there in open ground to attack. I should have just whittled that unit away with the longer ranged rifles from the right. Okay. Well, these numbers aren't very big. However, I think that's probably due to there just weren't that many troops involved. General Harper, one of the division commanders, got the fame buff. That's cool. Uh, 439 or 1639 men, 224 killed, 48 captured. Okay, so let's. I guess we'll look and see if we have 48 guys in our POW camp. And did get almost 1,000 small arms. Hopefully, some of those are actually rifles. And we got 8 more guns. Well, they weren't 12-pound howitzers. We ordered those. This number is the same. This number is the same. Yeah, I think we just picked up 6-pound field guns. That's probably all he had. And do we have any more? Same, same, same. I think we may have picked up a few extra Springfield rifles. There's enough there now for a medium-sized brigade that I don't think I had before. That's cool. Alright. The Springfield, these are the smoothbores, but this number has gone low because all of those troops that I recruited for that Western Kentucky Army, I gave them all Springfield muskets because that's really all I had. Okay. Did Price pick up a perk? Not quite. Not quite yet. Let's just run time a little bit and see which way they retreat. Going north, good. And Lion going up towards St. Louis, good. That pushes them away from Cairo, although we're not going to be in a position to go up to Cairo until we get this other army. So that's going to be about a month. This is just Johnson's new Army HQ, moving up to Covington. Which, oh, by the way, is Covington Confederate. It is. Nice. So I think that should mean that pretty much that whole area of Kentucky should be Confederate now. Well, sort of. Why is this still a little bit of residual Union in here? That is probably it. So Maysville is Confederate now. However, this IIP, the Maysville Ferry, still Union. So that's probably coming from Cincinnati. Same with Vanceburg Ferry. I may have to take Cincinnati after all. Here's another army forming up here. 250 men, so that's basically an artillery battalion there. And okay, Mansfield is back up to 10,000 men, and at some point going to be 18,000 men, and he's building a supply depot there. I think maybe I better cross the river and defeat him now before he gets those additional 18,000 men. Maybe, maybe not. But either way, that will have to wait for the next episode. I think we're done for this one after the battle there in Missouri. If you like what I'm doing, leave a like, leave a comment, perhaps even a subscribe. But at any rate, thank you very, very much for watching. I appreciate it.